So yeah, like I said, just taking from there where Adnan finished, I also would like to focus on resonances of nature, but particularly I would like to just to give a brief, like an overview also, how exciting it is to work for artists with data, how it can be, even though there are so different things. So yeah, also like from the plants intelligence research, we had so many. This was this 4-year project which we were presenting yesterday, and also it's partly presented in the exhibition here. From this 4-year project supported by Swiss National Science Foundation, so there were so many field work done also, and so many theoretical ideas and grounds developed that I was just thinking what could be what I didn't manage to do during these 4 years. And I realized that there was one amazing data sets which I didn't manage to analyze, which I was taking in Helmholtz Zentrum in Munich in January. So these were a few plants which we were scanning with a special scanner, Plant Eye. And I was thinking this light resonance, and as a contribution to this resonance of nature with Adnan and Marilu, I just wanted also to see what is what can I do when I go back and look at the data? But so what is happening with these data, and that's very interesting, is what is now what you also heard in other presentations, that we are kind of moving from these beautiful data and graphic representations to multisensory emotion-evoking experiences, what we also saw here yesterday with Climatone experience. But what is more interesting, like Edward Tufte, which is really an interesting author of the visual, who is theorizing about the visual display of quantitative information. So he's saying that the use of abstract non-representational pictures to show numbers is actually quite recent innovation if you compare with, I don't know, language, words, and so on. So it's about only in mid of 18th century, end of 18th century only. So the first like these visualizations became, yeah, you could understand that you could actually graphically represent something which is maybe numbers. This is one thing. The other one is for people, if you see the charts in the newspapers and today with fake news and everything, we always think, is the data lying? Yeah, because this is, we think that statistical can be manipulated. And we don't know how to often see and this is also one of the reasons maybe for the climate, because as something goes beyond our scale, and especially like big data, we think there could be manipulations which we don't understand. So that's another aspect. But like a main theory of this visual data display is that actually we are dealing with trying to make data which already are very complex, somehow understandable. And with big data, we cannot make them so understandable, but we can make them at least perceivable, if there is such a word. Yeah, so that we can perceive them and probably even multisensory. There is a book, this beautiful visualization, and this is about like that successful visualization should be gaining new knowledge. As we know from artistic research, which has become more and more like an important also part of academia recently. So we know that the knowledge, it's not only statistical data, that knowledge can be also produced in a different other sensory and artistic and through subjective experiences. So that just raises some questions. But also from the scientific perspective, the multisensory data are actually becoming more and more important because also the instruments have become very advanced. And this is a quote from the 1990s, when before all the remote sensing and many other instruments, but still there were quite quoted author like who has said that he's arguing that science would be much richer if it was multisensory. So because the problem with instrumentation is that instruments are unlike our senses, they are usually monosensory. It's a little bit about older instruments. They have a telescope or a microscope, so they are quite targeted into just activating one sense. These days we could say remote sensing, it's already like multi-sensor. You can put together different images like RGB and near infrared and have a complete understanding of vegetation, for example, in the big fields of the forests or the rivers. Yeah, so that's just a quick some basis of how we started also to work, because we also were, it's you don't know, but what is more important, to select scientific data or to, as artists, to collect your own? Then we have tried also different type multisensory, even tangible visualizations of particular data, how bacteria are generating electricity in the bottom of the pond. So we did even simple charts just so that to understand, so that there we can see the fluctuations. Then we did a 6-channel multi-sound installation also, that each of these bacteria battery cells installed in the pond were sonifying the fluctuation of the electricity. And finally, we also did this tangible sculpture, because we finally could print digital data. So I think that's really amazing that with 2010, 12, 14, so you start to have more instruments, so also how to make them multisensory. Okay. With atmospheric forest, also it was the project which I was working together as a part of a team with Yvonne Volkart. And I was also trying to create, for first time, it was when I was using these scientific remote sensing tools, and trying to show some processes which are happening in this structure. And yes, here is one of the instruments which probably scientists say that's great one already. It's multisensory. That's the LiDAR scanner. You can get the images almost like real images, yet they are very, very precisely measured with 10 million of laser light dots, let's say. Yeah, so they are also spatially, they are 3D objects. So that's already something when the data finally from this graphic representation becomes like spatial. So that's probably maybe more in, and Yvonne Volkart, when finishing this project, she very nicely described this experience, which was also Adnan mentioning about this emotionally evoking experience, what is happening when you enter into this like virtual reality, for example, space or multisensory like environment of the concert, for example. So what is happening? So how you can experience something which you couldn't. So we are bringing the viewer up to the tree, and these trees are sparkling because they are emitting these volatile emissions. They are under drought or climate change effects, and they are trying to survive, and they are emitting a lot of these emissions. So, and through this experience, which is even not much even storyline is very, very minimal there, but we can have this experience that you are kind of feeling that you are entering this this time of climate heating. And then it again goes into next my question, so which I'm interested, so how this climate data can be sensorialized, because this is also how we are perceiving also actually the culturally. So because people can have very different perceptions of the same artwork, for example, of atmospheric forest. Some people said, oh, it's beautiful, I want to go to the forest again and again. Some people said, I'm so afraid, it seems that these trees are, you know, like in big flames. Yeah, so they say, why do you make so scary these experiences? So that's depending really where people are. And this with atmospheric forest, I think I was for first time very much interested actually what people think, because as artists we usually don't think much what they think. But when do you start like deliver like experiences like this, so that when people are literally like multisensory only, not visually perceiving, then you start asking these questions. Yeah, okay, then we return for our wonderful electromagnetic spectrum back. So this was a theoretical introduction, and now it's data analysis. So how past few weeks, I was trying to, so there was one scene in solar scepters where I was using these plants. However, they are quite independent ones, because I was trying to measure them and understand what kind of data we can receive actually, how we can study individually the plants with their relation to light. So in here I was trying to visualize and sonify. I've involved Raitis who was sonifying particularly. I was giving a special task to Krista DINTERE, who was in residency in Riksi in this summer, and she had a lot of new field recordings. So I was also trying to involve and try to just experiment. It's a prototype. It's not scientific like you. Excuse me. Yeah, but that's about this. So there were these. I selected these 6 scans. RGB, and then they are modified spectrum. This is the spectrum which potentially kind of is perceived, maybe even lights, maybe some animals see. This plant eyes, it's another instrument, so which if it's carefully studied can become interesting. So this is Jörg Peter Schnitzler in the Helmholtz Institute. So the scientists were devoting 2 days. So they were taking care about these plants, which in January we could buy in a shop, because there were not so many you could get flowering plants in a shop. But they were really for these few days caring a lot, and specifically devoting and putting all this into their scanners, into their systems, and they were scanning them through the plant eye, the scanner, where they are with 2 LiDAR scanners. They are measuring all possible information about these plants. And what is this possible information? I was just now revising how it is. So so I've got these data sets, and for a while I said I didn't have time to look at them. Yeah, it's quite confusing. So what to do with them? And now I decided that all these 6 plants, because there were about 7 different data which were measuring light absorption, colors, like light color intensity against pigments, for example, and so on. So I think it was so interesting, and I'm sure it's not so interesting even I even don't know how to present so that I could show this interest. But what I was giving, it was the tasks for Krista to work with the field recordings and try to understand what I want to get out of, for example, the plant number 1, Ehemia. So it was a soundscape created by, so here for this Ehemia, I choose the sonifying this GLAI data, which are translating, which are plant light exposure. And so they were measuring how plant has been feeling when it was growing, how much exposed to the light comparably to the shadow this plant has been growing. So all these parameters are there. And so when I understood this row of the data, I selected it out to give to Raitis to sonify, to make some patterns of modulation. And here I was also trying to describe to Krista what I would like to hear. So for example, because light exposure, it would mean maybe brighter tones emerging from these highlight areas of this plant and how it is playing with the deeper sounds, imaginative or field sounds from the shade. Yeah, so and so on. I was continuing to analyze with different other data. I will not go maybe into each of these data sets, but yeah, so that's what I was trying to create here. And then later, Patrick, who is working also with the other projects you will hear today with our census platform, augmented reality. So he put together all these plans in a space, augmented space, together with sonifications. Yeah, so this was sonification strategies. And for the visualization strategies, yeah, we were using so that they are from RGB colors, kind of human perception. It is also gradually changing to the night or night vision, as we've heard yesterday, maybe from Philippus, but it's not night vision only. It's also the vision of what the spectrum of the light, what plants themselves receive. Yeah, and so these 6 plants. So the idea is that they could be planted virtually into this garden, which we will be visiting today because it's cold, but it's sunny at least. So we will be showcasing the work in a lunch break there. When you receive from me these sounds, what did you try to do?
Yeah, so first of all, it felt like quite a big challenge to try to interpret a plant in terms of sounds, and as well like this. Yeah, so I'm using mostly when I work recorded sounds, so field recordings. So this was something where I feel very good. But yeah, so plants do not we don't usually think when we look at a plant that we will hear something. And but I was thinking what could be the sounds that could be projected onto this surface of the plant. Because we perceive spaces and places through sound a lot. So when there's a sound projected into the space, we kind of hear for instance, reverberation. And as this piece is about how plants perceive light, and as well, how we see plants. Then what I come up with was that I want to use some sound material that is as well somehow connected to this how plants use light, so photosynthesis. And one part of photosynthesis is it cannot happen without water, and water makes sounds. So this was something how I came to the idea of using different kinds of water sounds projected on the plants. Yeah.
Yeah, and the task was, I was asking to provide also, in addition to these compositions for each plant, I was asking also to provide 6 samples, sample sets for each of the plant, so that Raitis could sonify.
Yeah, and this was as well quite interesting because I had to provide very short snippets of sound, and as well, they had to have these 2 polarities. So, for instance, light and dark as the input. So they have to be somehow related, but distinctly different. And it's quite interesting as well that, for instance, I made the samples, then Raitis took over, and it's just giving this agency to the data basically to modulate what I give as an input. It's quite interesting, the outcome, how far from the field recording it actually is. Yeah, so maybe you can.
Okay, and Yeah, and no, come here. Just also, already we had a similar question, actually, how you sonify the data, and this time, especially when you use the samples, not the numbers then anymore.
Yeah, hello. First of all, I think I really enjoyed this collaboration because it reminded me of children's game where you actually have a piece of paper, you draw some part of something, and then you fold it and pass it to the next one. And then the outcome will be like, yeah, we'll see. So in this case, it was, for me at least, it was a little bit similar. Rasa was kind of overviewing all process, but I was pretty isolated in this one specific task. Then also Krista did most of the work, so she just gave me a bunch of samples, and I had these data strings which were selected by ourselves, like not all data, but some specific particular strings. And then because also we had this specific format, which is augmented reality app, and which is you can experience with the mobile device. So that means we had also this limitation of frequencies, which you can actually clearly sort of perceive with these devices. So that also was kind of I enjoyed that part. So it was, and the duration also had to be short because nobody's gonna walk around for 15 or 20 minutes with the cell phone enjoying kind of soundscape, or maybe someone will do, but generally. Yeah, all these components kind of made my work pretty simple. Sometimes when I work with sound, because I'm not a musician, I work mostly intuitively with the sound or sonification as well. So I tend to use lately software by Sam Aron, so Sonic Pi, which is like really kind of, for me, it's kind of, I really enjoy working with that. So especially for this, like creating short sounds or repetitive looping sounds. So we applied, but what I did, so I took these data strings and applied to very simple parameters in those samples. So general idea was to kind of have a contrast to create the soundscapes, take those samples and kind of deconstruct them. And I applied the data strings to basically pitches of the samples, duration, amplitude, and also introduce some little granular slicing, so to deconstruct them even further, so to layer them a little bit, the parts of the samples layer on the top of each other. And then the rest was just kind of my subjective choice, so which I... What you're saying?
Below.
Yeah.
The rows of the data.
Yes. So yeah,
How
this...
they relate to field recordings.
So these are the data which controls those parameters, so which I kind of mapped to those parameters which I mentioned. So, and they generally, because I introduced also the live looping, so I had to choose like some particular part. I just played it back and then I listened to the result and kind of cut out a small part of it. But basically the data, because it's limited string, so it's, in this case, it is randomly continuous loop, so which is manipulating those parameters.
Okay. And the result, I would like to invite Patrick to take on, and can you show?
Yes. Yeah, I can also.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I got everything. I was the last person in this like row of exchanging data. And I created an arrangement in space that you can all experience in augmented reality using the Census app. We will later also have a presentation. And maybe two like notes for best enjoyment. Like many people, when they're using augmented reality, they will just look around. But I think it's really meant to walk around, to use also your body to explore it, because it's like a almost 10-meter large area. And you can walk inside the plants and then also better perceive the different sonic layers of it. And the other thing is best use headphones because it's binaurally rendered. So you can also better perceive the localization of the sounds. And I can only show it to you now very like concisely. Best is by ourselves. See. And your device, the iPad, the tablet, or the phone, you can imagine as the camera and the microphone. Oh, camera and the microphone in this like virtual augmented world. Right, it's really best that you try this out. There's the headphones, yes, because it's binaural sound, and you can also just perceive the frequency better. Will just sound better. I mean, kids nowadays, they listen also to music on their smartphones without any headphones, but there are better ways to listen to sound.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So, thank you very much. So we finish.